All right, in the last video, we talked about articles of incorporation. In this video, we're going to talk about bylaws. We got my little book here. I want to make sure I don't miss anything when I tell you guys what I've learned in practice and what it means. So what are bylaws? Bylaws are a document that control the internal management of a company. So after you organize a corporation and you file the articles of incorporation and you get your certificate of incorporation with the state, the members, the board members, the people, the founders, the people that started the company and filed with the Secretary of State to form the company, in some cases are required, in some cases is optional. They put together the bylaws of the company. And this is a document that delineates how management is going to operate. It can delineate such things as how many board members are needed in the company for it to operate. It can delineate how many votes are necessary to accomplish certain tasks. So for example, if you have a real estate company, and there's $1 million in the company, it may say that for anything above 500,000, you need board authorization. That could be something that's in the bylaws. Or it can say if you want to issue a new stock, new shares, new class of stock, so a preferred stock or a bond for the company, you have to get a majority vote of the board of directors. Or it could say if you want to issue or if you want to purchase this, or if you want to sell this asset from the company, you need a 30% vote from the board of directors or a 70% vote of board of directors. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because this is how a lot of companies create their controls internally, right? So if you have a founder, I'm sure some of you guys may have heard big founders in their companies getting ousted from their company. The most notable example is Steve Jobs, who got fired from Apple, and people wonder how that happened. Well, when investors come in, usually they rearrange the bylaws. So board of directors can change these bylaws or implement them or take certain parts out of the bylaws at any given time. And usually what happens is after a seed investment or a big round of investing, most venture capitalists, I shouldn't say most, some venture capitalists want that, right, as security for themselves, and they understand that having control over the bylaws really controls the whole company. It doesn't matter who the CEO or the management team is, that dictates how the company will be run. So the CEO is limited by the bylaws of the company, and so are the rest of the management, the executive management. Let me see what else they say here about bylaws to see if I'm missing anything out. So they call it a charter. Sometimes they call it a charter, a bylaw, the bylaw charter. They say, give me the charter of the company. That's another synonym for bylaws. And it's concerned, again, with board members, the number of directors, number of authorized shares, the bylaws, which usually can be amended by the directors themselves, cover such points as election of directors, the appointment of executive financial committees, the duties of the officers, and how shares are transferred in bylaws. So this is another point, right? The duties of the officers can be delineated. This is not an always thing, but if they put together a good bylaw charter, or your bylaws of the charter of the corporation, or your bylaws of the corporation, they're going to say what that CEO is responsible for. And sometimes it comes in an amendment. So sometimes when they form the corporation, they put the bylaws together, and it's very simple, right? We need 5 directors, or we need 1 director if it's a solo man show. And sometimes it could be as short as a page. And then they amend it. So they add something to it. They add a piece of contract, a piece of paper that they write out. And they say, the duties of the CEO are XYZ. The duty of the COO are XYZ. The duties of the CTO are XYZ. And that goes into the bylaws. Now, if they are broken by the CEO, by the CTO, then there's a breach, right? There's a breach of there's a couple cases where you can bring that on there, but it's a breach of contract law. It's going to be a breach against the corporation. It's a fiduciary breach. It could be a tortious breach, depending on if the CEO was fraudulent. But that's the cause of action that the shareholders have, because the CEO broke the law, right? The laws that they made up for themselves, which is the bylaws, right? The bylaws. So the duties of the officers is a very interesting way to control the company through the bylaws, as well as how the shares transfer. So you can put you can have buyback agreements, for example, in your bylaws. So it can say if you issue someone stock, it says, anyone issued stock in this private corporation, if they choose to sell, must offer them to the company first, right? So these are laws that may control how the shareholders are holding on to your equity or bonds or debt offerings. So those are the bylaws of the corporation. In an LLC, they're called the they're called the operating agreements. In an LLC, they're called the operating agreement. They do something very similar. They create the rules for the company and the management team. So this is a great tool for management taking on investors to understand and to understand how you can retain power here. Especially the most common way is in the percentage of vote needed to take certain actions. So you can delineate, that you need certain amount of votes to do certain things. For example, to out a director, right? So that's one way to keep that in play as far as your company. So we hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter. Stay motivated. Hope you guys are rocking out. And we'll talk again soon.